All right. So I am Kimberly, and this is Kimberly. If you don't already know us, so you've got Kimberly squared today. Um, so we've established that you guys can hear us. So we will go ahead and jump right into this PPC Masterclass. So, all right. When you think about PPC, is this you?
I know it's been me many times.
This was me at the beginning. I was just like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah, because
Um,
when you first hear about it, you think, oh, I can do this. But there are so many little intricacies and different pathways you can take. So, yeah,
there are, and you can sit down and listen to a training, and if you're listening to this training too, this you may think you get it, and then when you actually go start doing it, you're like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. And that was me. I went through some training and I felt like I understood it, and then when I actually had to implement it, I was like, ah. So
hmm
yeah, but don't worry, we got you.
I love
So
that.
and you're gonna
Yeah.
have this to refer back to. I love this little guy, he's so cute. All right, so today we are going to be reviewing the steps that you need to complete your keyword research, create a winning listing, and create PPC campaigns to be ready for launch, and review a launch strategy and the key areas to monitor and manage within PPC campaigns. So it's a lot. Whoops,
Yeah, you
my
can see
screen goes
it's a
backwards.
heavy training topic, and we also are very aware that it's more targeted to those people who are about to launch or already selling. But I'd encourage you, even if you are in that research phase, stick with it because this is such an integral part, and you need to be onto it from day dot. So um,
Yeah.
take it in. There's something there for everybody. It is in a more advanced training, but you're still going to get those gems.
Absolutely. And there are two pillars of PPC that you need to make sure that you have down. And the first one is conducting your effective keyword research. And we went into that a bit last week with the beginner's guide. So this is something you need to do well in advance and make sure that you have your keywords ready to go. And then you need to optimize your product listing. So, I have, in my shopping on Amazon, I have occasionally come across a listing that literally had one or two photos. And recently, I've actually seen one that had no bullet points at all, no
Mm.
description, and it had a two-word title. So they basically had no keywords in that entire listing. So you need to optimize your product listing. Um,
Yeah.
so that involves a lot of different things. So your pricing needs to be competitive. We've it's competitive, but you don't want to be fighting to win just based on price, because that is going to be a path to just a race to the bottom. Um, you want to make sure that you have photos and that they're good photos, and take up all of those photo spots and mix them up. Have different types of photos, put infographics in, and there's lots of ways to do that. You don't have to pay someone to create that for you. I've talked about Canva in the past. It's a really great platform. It's free. It makes doing graphic design super easy. And you can customize the size. So look and see what size your photos need to be. I believe they have to be square. So it's going to be either 1,000 by 1,000 or 2,000 by 2,000. I think at minimum is 1,000 by 1,000 pixels. And you can actually specify that inside Canva. So it makes it super easy to create your graphics. They're going to take up that whole space. I've seen that before, where someone takes a photo with their iPhone, and it's a very narrow photo, and it's not taking up all of the real estate on Amazon. So you can take a bigger, a wider photo, turn it landscape, and then you can crop it into those sizes as well, and you can do that on Canva. And then you want to make sure that your copy is keyword rich, and that doesn't mean keyword stuffed. You want to make sure that it reads well for human beings, but has the keywords placed in it for the algorithm. And Listing Optimizer is going to help you with that. And something to note, you don't have to put your keywords in multiple times. If you have it in once, you've got
Mm.
credit for it.
Yeah, a lot of people miss
So
that one. And the reason why we're talking about these two pillars is that PPC, it's pay per click. it's an auction style format. You're trying to get people to click on your ad. If they do that and then they get to your listing and you have horrible photos, the copy doesn't resonate, you're priced way out of the market, then you've just wasted money on that click. You need to be able to convert them when they get there. So it's important to have.
Absolutely. And that will impact, that conversion rate is going to impact the algorithm as well, and where you're ranking for keywords. If someone clicks on a listing and you've advertised for whatever, your main keyword is, then they don't it. Well, then Amazon may start to think, oh, well, maybe that's not, this product that they've put the ad on. So that's another reason you want to make sure that your keyword research nets you relevant keywords. If you're doing something that's bamboo, don't use a keyword that says wood, because if someone's looking for a wooden product and they get to your listing, that may not be what they want, and you may advertise in the wrong place. All right. So there is a basic PPC strategy, kind of a framework to what we're talking about. So once you launch your PPC campaign, you want to give it a couple weeks before, and you want to be monitoring the performance, but you don't want to be making changes too frequently. And you need to give it a couple weeks to see what's happening. Give it time to get impressions. Give it time to get out there and let out the algorithm understand your listing and the keywords you're attaching to it. You do need to monitor it though, at least weekly. At the beginning, once it's a mature listing and it's a mature campaign and it's humming along and you've got it optimized, every couple of weeks would probably be okay to keep an eye on it. You also want to make sure that you're looking at that search term report and finding keywords that are performing in your auto campaign and in your manual campaigns. Because when you look at your search term report, you can see the keyword that you advertised for, and then you can see the search term that the customer actually put in. And you may see that there's some keywords there that you're not using, or some phrases, and you might want to add those to your manual campaign and start using those as well. And then you'll find heaps of new keywords in your auto campaign as well. And that's the job of the auto campaign, in my opinion, is to find new keywords that you haven't thought of.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So when you prepare, you want to create a master keyword list. So you want to use Keywords on Fire to generate that. And then you want to look at least 10 competitors in that part of Keywords on Fire, where you can put up to 25 different ASINs in, and you want to pick those really well and make sure that they're the top performing ones, because you want to then get the good keywords. So you can find out what they're using, what the keywords are that are relevant, and then you can see how they're ranking. So you can find those little gems of keywords, those long tail keywords that maybe they're not ranking for, that still have a good search volume, and that you could try and really hone in on and focus on.
Yeah,
You want to find those gaps.
Yeah, I can't even talk today. How many people have used Keywords on Fire? Just little hands up if you have. I'd be interested to know. It's such a powerful tool, and the data that it gives you is just priceless, because it will very clearly, it's even color coded, and you'll see these spaces of green where it's basically, here's an opening, here's some keywords that aren't being well optimized by the competition, but it's still got strong search volume and it's still highly relevant.
Yeah, and when you see the little dashes, that means that their ranking for that keyword is greater than 200. So they're not even pulling in, in the top 200 listings. So that is really valuable. And if you don't see those competitor listings, when you're looking at Keywords on Fire in the right, there's a little wheel. Click on that cogwheel and it'll show you all of the columns that could be displayed. And if you're not seeing the competitors ranking, you may need to click that, and then it'll show up, and then you can export that into a CSV file and take your time and go through that.
Yeah, definitely. Something else that I do in Keywords on Fire is when I'm targeting the competitors, because essentially it's a reverse ASN lookup tool. I'll often bring in those competitors that are very well established that have the very high ratings, because there's been the algorithms had a lot longer to work out what the product is, where it's placed, what keywords relate to it, what's converting on it. So I really go after those high rating competitors when I'm forming my keyword list as well.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So I've got a question. How do I find the top 10, not just the top 10 on Keywords on Fire? So you'll want to use your Chrome extension. So when you're actually on page one for whatever the main keyword is for your product, and use that Chrome extension, and you can sort it based on the revenue or based on the number of sales, and see who the top sellers are. And then you can copy those ASINs into your Keywords on Fire session. And yes, there will be a replay link coming out for this later today. Okay, so moving on. So you've started your list. So you want to take a look at your keyword list. And this is something that I typically do once I've refined it in Keywords on Fire and made sure that all of the keywords there are relevant, and that they are not branded. So you can eliminate different things from that keyword list using the filters, or you can just click in the little box to the left of a keyword, and then there's a little icon next to the cogwheel where you can hide a row. So if you see just one off that's not relevant, you know, like I said, if you're selling a wooden product or a bamboo product and the opposite keyword is listed there, you don't want to include that because it's not going to be relevant. So you could just take that off of your display. Then you export it out to your CSV file and open it up in your spreadsheet software of choice. And then, you know, so you've removed your non-relevant keywords, you've removed your branded keywords. Well, then you can sort by the keyword name, and then you can eliminate duplicates. And there's even a function within Excel just that will find those duplicate keywords and will remove them for you. And this is kind of important because a lot of times what I will do is I'd probably have maybe 3 or 4 main keyword phrases that are hyper relevant for my product. So I'll run a Keywords on Fire session on all 3 of them, and then I'll clean them up, and then I'll export the CSV file, and then I'll cut and paste and put those all into one sheet, and then I'll sort it and remove those duplicates. Because that way, you know, there might end up being, you know, a couple, you know, maybe a handful that show up in one list that didn't show up in the other, and they could be very useful.
Yeah, we've just had a question.
Branded keyword.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're right. You're like Nike or Adidas or those big name brands. So you really want to take those names out of the equation when you're looking at keywords.
Yeah, because you cannot put a branded keyword for a competitor in your listing. So, you know, say you're selling, you know, shoes, you can't put Nike or Puma or, you know, Adidas or Reebok. You can't put that in your listing. Now, technically though, and I've had a person from Amazon advertising tell me this, you can advertise on branded keywords, but they can get really expensive. So I don't recommend it at the beginning, because it can just get into a really high ACoS and not be profitable for your PPC campaign.
And there's better ways to do it. There's ad types, which we'll get into later, where sponsored display, where you can actually pick your competitor products to have your ad appear and compete against them. It's much smarter, but we will get to that a little bit later. If there's any takeaway from here, and I hear people getting this so wrong all the time, is that you need to remove your plurals and conjunctions. This is a big thing. And when I first heard it, it actually blew my mind, because so many people leave them in, not realizing that Amazon treats them all the same. I know we've spoken about that when we first heard of, and that's the big takeaway, I think, from here as well.
Oh, that completely blew my mind when I found that out, because, you know, my product is, you know, blank blank for the blank blank, you know, and that for the I don't need to advertise for that. And, I might have that phrase a couple of different ways with those different conjunctions. And then when I take those out, then I look at it and I'm advertising for basically the same keyword, 3 or 4 times
Mm-hmm.
just because of those conjunctions. And that's wasting money.
Yeah, and
Um,
so many
Renzo's
people do
asked
that.
why it's not allowed. Sorry, Renzo's asked why it's not allowed to use branded keywords, and that is against Amazon terms of service. That
Yeah.
you're not allowed to put branded keywords in your listing. They will shut your listing down when the algorithm finds them.
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't give too much more information there, but Amazon really wants to create a great shopping experience. So if you jump on the platform and go, okay, I really want to find an Adidas pair of sneakers, and somebody else has that in their listing that isn't that could potentially show that's not what you're after. Amazon really wants to make sure that you're getting what you're asking for. So I think there's a little bit of logic behind there, trying to create a good consumer experience.
There is an exception though, but it's really specific. So like if you're selling a phone case, you can put in your listing, phone case for iPhone. If it's a product that's an accessory to a branded product, then you can do that. But there's specific ways to do that, and we're not putting that in. I don't do that, so I'm not really familiar with it, so I don't feel comfortable teaching on it. But you can look in Amazon terms of service, and it should explain how you can do that. And I believe it is just saying, compatible with or for this product.
Yeah. Renzo, you can definitely mention your own brand, 100%. And Amazon will put
100%.
that in there anyway. So you have no limitations on your own brand.
And there are a lot of people who advise to put your brand name at the beginning of your title. So I'm curious, Kimberly, what are your thoughts on that?
I've had the situation where Amazon's taken that choice away from me. It just is put in the title. It depends on the selling category. I've noticed different products will have it and others won't. I was in like that fashion, clothing, accessories. That made me put it in. I didn't have the option. But what I find with brand names is I like to create brand names that describe my product. So even if it is included, it's helping with my keywords and my rankings. For example, if I was selling a dog bed, I wouldn't just create a jumbled mix of letters or something. It would be maybe, well, I'm just looking at one now. It's the most popular one there, Fur Haven. I mean, it creates fur. I think of dogs. There's one called Bedshaw. Have keywords in there that create an idea of what your product actually is. So it kind of covers both bases.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for my brand, I made sure that the brand name, when you see it, you're immediately going to know these are going to be this is the niche of the products. This is going to be for this. So yeah, if you say, Fur Haven, people are immediately going to go, well, that's going to be something to do with pets.
Yeah, absolutely. Creates that experience already before they even look at the listing. Awesome. So Renzo's just asked, when I say branded, I mean if it is a Nike or Adidas. So if you're selling a Nike or Adidas product, if you are the seller of the product, if you're an authorized reseller of them, you can use their brand name. But if you were selling just a generic product and you wanted to put Adidas in your listing somewhere, you can't do that. You've also got trademark issues there too. Not a silly
100%.
question at all. Not a silly. There is no such thing as a silly question here, and they're all things that we've, had the same things raised. So.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, we that's why we do the training. So there's no silly questions when we're in training. There's no silly questions ever. This is a learning process, and even though we're experienced sellers, we're still learning things along the way. Like I said, it was just recently that we learned about the plurals and conjunctions, and mind blown. I mean, it was just like, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Straight into those PPC campaigns and ripping those conjunctions out. And yes.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so after you've done this, so you've neatened up your keyword list, then you want to sort it by search volume. And that will make sense when I explain how we're going to group these keywords into our campaigns. So once you've done this, you've got all of your keywords nice and neat. Then you want to make sure that you use listing optimizer and create a great listing. That is, you've got to have that good listing. So when they click on your photo, they get there and they're like, yes, this is what I want. So when you create a great listing in Listing Optimizer, this is part of what you'll see. So you've got your keywords, which I've not included in this photo because this is one of my listings. And you've got your search volumes listed. And then you've got, your keywords on FireScore, the number of competitors that are using the keyword, and then you've got your stars and your ticks. So, you can see here that I've got, the solid gold stars. That keyword is in my title, an exact match. And those are my best keywords, and I've got it in there exactly. The ones that are hollow stars, it's in the title, but it's not an exact match. So it could be broad. Is that broad or phrase, or is it?
Yeah, I think it's broad or phrase. Yeah.
Broad or phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and the difference, exact match. So say we're looking for, dog bed for large dogs. Okay, so dog bed for large dogs would be written exactly like that in the title. That's an exact match. But if you said large dog beds, well, that would be a phrase match because it's out of order. That would be a broad match because it's out of order. I'm getting confused.
Same keywords, but in a different order.
Yes. And then if you have large dog bed Doberman, dogs, that would be a phrase match because it's out of order and you've got other words in between them, but you can still pull those words out that are part of your PPC campaign. And I hope it made sense.
It will become, it does, it will become much more clear as we keep going, but it just proves, we're all searching for things in different ways, and what you might think is how other people are jumping in and finding your products, you could be way off. And this is where those broad and phrase matches become very powerful because, they're going to pick up on all those variations.
Yeah. I would try and say it again, Renzo, but I'm going to get myself confused again. The information that explains those is in PDF document that you're going to get with the replay today. So it's something that we went into more detail in the training last week. So that if you didn't watch the one last week, when that goes up on our training replays, that might be one that you'll want to check out because it was the beginner's guide to Amazon advertising. And then just going forward, the tick marks, that means that it is, the keyword is somewhere else in my listing. So you can see all of these keywords all the way down to a search volume of 834. These are all in my listing. There's no gaps there whatsoever. So I've made sure that they're all there. Then continuing on with your great listing, you don't want to leave money on the table. Okay, so you can see here, you'll get an optimization score when you're doing your listing optimizer and crafting your listing. And then you also have your search volume and your combined revenue numbers. So if you take a look, you can see that this 92,158, I'm not sure if you guys can see that. That's the total search volume of all of the keywords that I've put into this listing optimizer session. Based on the keywords I've placed in my listing, I could generate a combined search volume of 91,965. So I'm almost 100% there. And then the same here with the combined revenue. This is the revenue of all of those keywords in the list, and this is how well I've optimized my listing. So those look really, really good, but you can see that my optimization score is still not huge, but it's being compared to other ZonGuru users. So I focus more on these. This is an important score too, but my bigger focus tends to be on getting as much of that search volume and as much of that combined revenue as possible.
Yeah, that's my focus as well, definitely.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to get into my OCD. You guys, welcome to my OCD world. There is reason. There is method to the madness here. So when you create your PPC campaigns, you don't want to just go and throw all your keywords in one campaign and just run. You need to be methodical about it, and that's why we sort the keywords by search volume. So you want to group your keywords into different campaigns based on that search volume.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of different ways you can do this. But the main thing, you're going to start out with your portfolio. So, if your product is a dog bed, then your portfolio will be dog bed. And then all of your campaigns within that portfolio are going to be for the dog bed. So you kind of think it as like a tree, almost like a little a family tree, or bullet points that just keep going in and getting more specific. So there's two different strategies you could use to organize this, and this is all included in your document that you're going to get. So you can start with this option, manual campaign, option 1. So you'll start with a manual product and match type for your campaign. So you can see here, my campaign is a, and I've labeled it as manual. So I can just, when I look at it, I know it's a manual campaign, not an auto campaign, which means I've put the keywords into it. I'm not letting Amazon decide what the keywords are going to be or the targets. So manual, dog bed, exact. So this campaign is a manual campaign for a dog bed, and it's exact match. And the search volume of the keywords within that campaign are greater than 50,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't want to put more than 6 to 8 keywords in a single campaign. And the reason for that is the campaign is where you can control the ad spend. So if I put, 100 keywords into one campaign, and I set, $100 a day, and I've only done the one campaign, and I set $100 a day daily budget. Well, that's it for all of those keywords. So some of those keywords may not get an opportunity to even try and work.
Not at all.
So
When you
that's
look
why,
at that, yeah, I mean, search volume above 50,000, they're big hitting keywords. They're the big ones. So if you had a keyword with 50,000 monthly searches being made, and you also put into that same group, that same campaign, a keyword with 1,000 monthly searches, you can see which one's going to chew through the budget quicker. You're not even giving a chance to that smaller keyword, which is why it's important to segment them by search volume and then group them together with like valued searches. So it really does make a huge difference and will help control your ad spend.
100%. Absolutely. Now, in this option, I'm not changing the ad group. So the ad group within a campaign, you can have multiple ad groups. But in this one, because I'm only doing 6 to 8 keywords, and if I have search volume over 50,000, I may only have 2 or 3 keywords in it, just depending on how the search volume plays out, and how you break up that division of your search volume is going to depend on your products, on the search volume of your product. So like if we go back for just a second,
and even the marketplace as well. I just probably should clarify that these figures are for the US market. If you were in Australia or even the UK, you're probably dealing with in Australia, definitely much smaller search volume numbers. So It's all relative to the product and the marketplace.
Yeah. So you can see here, for this one, 34,000 was the top search volume. It's not a hugely in demand product like a pet bed might be. So, I might put these 2 keywords in one campaign. So I would have over 10,000. And then here I might do, 5 to 10,000. And then I might do, 3 to 5,000. And then above 2,000, above 1,000, and then below 1,000. Just depends on, how important I think they are and how many I want to put. So, that's not putting a huge number in any one campaign, if that makes sense to everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was another big game changer for me, versus how I did have my PPC campaign set up. It's logical, it makes sense, and I've noticed that my ad spend and the return, it's just, this is the way to do it.
Yeah, it just makes such a profound impact on the profitability of your PPC campaign, and that's so important. All right, so then again here, you can see, the next campaign, manual dog bed, exact 25 to 50,000 search volume. And then the ad group is exactly the same. Now, if you wanted to, and if it made sense and was appropriate, you could have the one campaign with the different the different match types in different ad groups. So
this is what we were touching on before, on how Amazon recognizes the keywords. So exact match is dog bed, whereas phrase match is that dog beds for dachshunds, and your broad match is where you've got the same keywords but all jumbled up. And just pointing back to that fact that we all use different things. We think it's logical and that everybody should be searching like us, but the reality is there is a million different ways to find a dog bed. And having
100%.
these different match types is your way of capturing those.
And and this is something to note too, that your match types, the same keyword will have a different suggested bid. Your exact match are going to be the more expensive bids, phrase match a little bit cheaper, and broad match the least expensive of the three types. So again, when you're looking at how you're monitoring and managing your ad campaigns and your budget, that may have an impact on which option you go for. So this is one way you could do it. I kind of tend to go with option one and have a different campaign for each match type, just because I can really control that ad spend.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. But I enjoy looking at my search term report that Amazon puts out, and my phrase match, I guess keywords is where you get those really crazy out there ones. Every now and again, you'll find a really good keyword that you didn't think of, and then I'll move that into an exact match for that phrase that they've pulled out. So it's a great way to find extra keywords.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, that's your manual campaigns. Then you've got auto campaigns. So same thing. There's 4 different match types in automatic campaigns. And you could set it up where you have a campaign based on the match type, and then the ad group would be the same. So it's exactly the same type of format as before when you're we're dividing these up by match types. So auto bed, close match. That could be your campaign, and it would be the same thing for your ad group. Or you could put one campaign, your auto campaign for dog bed, and a different ad group for each of the match types. And within auto campaigns, you've got close match, loose match, complements, and substitutes. And Renzo's asking about what costs are involved with exact, and it's going to vary. Every keyword is going to have a different suggested bid. So when you set up your campaign, you'll see what those suggested bids are.
Yeah, such a good question. If you want some guidance in Keywords on Fire, it will actually tell you the estimated bid cost for each of the keywords. So it's going to give you some guidance to run by. I'm just at a guess, if you were to bid on the word Christmas gifts or something at the moment, it would be off the charts. You can find keywords that are $5, $6 a click. And then there's a lot of others that, 70 cents will get you a good showing. Really depends on your product category. And then again, the marketplace as well. So in Australia, there aren't many competitors. You could be bidding as low as 20 or 30 cents a click. It's really relative.
Well, and it depends also on the demand, as a product category might start having an influx of sellers and more people selling it and more people advertising, it's supply and demand. The bid price is going to go up, and they're going to change. They can change from day to day.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
what you would bid for Halloween costume now versus a month ago they'd be like this. It would,
Yeah.
it constantly updates because it is that auction style format. It's an auction.
Yeah.
So the big price does move. Renzo, have a look at the ZonGuru Keywords on Fire tool. So that's where you're going to see that estimated PPC cost for each keyword. That's a really good place to start.
Yeah. And then when you create your PPC campaigns within Seller Central, for each keyword, it'll give you a range for your suggested bid. So it may say, 73 cents to $1.05, just depending. On what the product is and on the day. It can change from day to day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So substitutes. So Paul has asked, what are substitutes? So how's the easiest way to explain that and not confuse anybody?
I think the name is pretty clear in itself. It's like, I'm just trying to think if I can think of a term where it's like, what would you be searching for?
Oh, well, like if someone put in dog bed and a substitute might be, dog kennel, or, it's still
Dog
something.
blanket, or
Yeah,
it's in that family of products.
but it's not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. I know this is like drinking out of a fire hydrant, I'm sure. Okay, so the purpose of your PPC at launch. I've come across people who think, no, I'm not going to do PPC at launch, and I'm like,
No,
you need to.
no.
Please,
Yeah,
please don't. Yeah, please, please,
yeah.
please. I
If
mean,
you're on the
this is
US, yeah,
have to.
you have to. You have to.
You have to, absolutely have to. And I know someone who had a product, and they didn't create their PPC campaign because they weren't comfortable with it yet, and they had someone else do it. And I don't think that they really used or understood the product and didn't put in the most relevant keywords into this campaign. And it had a trickle down effect on this listing and made it really difficult to recover from. Because the purpose of PPC at launch is to generate sales by targeting relevant keywords and ASINs. So you can target other products. You can target your competitor. Like I've got a competitor who I look at the product and I'm like, how are they in the top 10? That is so ugly. And their listing is so horrible, but how, So I would definitely target them and have my ad show up on their listing. And there's a way to do that we'll get into later. But the main reason that you want to start your PPC campaign at launch is because when you launch, the Amazon algorithm is trying to figure out what your product is. And that goes back to why we use relevant keywords, not complementary keywords. They need to be relevant. So, if I'm selling a dog bed, I put it up. Amazon doesn't know what I am. So they'll they'll try and show me to different people. But if I'm advertising dog blanket and I'm showing up on a page of dog blankets, well, sure, my photo is going to stand out because it's completely different, but is it what people are looking for? And if people click on that, then Amazon goes, oh, this must be a dog blanket, but it's not. And then it doesn't convert. And then the algorithm gets confused.
And the algorithm, when you don't convert, when you've got those low conversion rates, the algorithm is like, oh, we won't show this one as much because we can see people aren't buying it. So It mustn't be a great product, it mustn't be relevant, and you'll just get buried in the search result pages. So relevancy is key. So I would, every day of the week, target lower search volume, highly relevant keywords versus going after a really big, heavy hitting keyword that didn't quite nail my product. Definitely go for relevancy every day of the week.
Yes. Part of this PPC is also going to help you rank organically for other keywords. And that's the whole premise behind what we teach, the halo effect, why you go after those long tail keywords, because then Amazon understands what you are and says, oh, so you're advertising and people are buying your product when they click on your ad, fluffy dog bed for older dogs. Well, then we're going to start ranking you for dog bed because you're obviously a dog bed. And that would be a really high search volume keyword, dog bed. But that other would be lower. But you see how it just kind of, Amazon
It
has now learned
snowballs.
what you are, and it's just going to snowball and do that. So you want to be ranking in the top 10 for each of your main keywords after a few weeks of launching with your PPC campaign, because you've taught the algorithm what you are, and it's then going to reward you with those organic ranks. Now, I've put here ACOS less than 30%, but that's going to vary based on your profit margins.
Yeah, definitely. And ACOS means advertising cost of sales. It's basically a metric that divides as ad spend by your total ad sales. So that's where that comes from.
Yes. So, if your profit margin is 40%, well, number one, well done. But then you have room to have a higher ACOS because you've got that wiggle room there of a 40% gross profit margin that you can play with and still make money.
Yeah, definitely. Renzo's just asked if we'd use dog bed or bed dog. So that is a great example of the match type. So maybe you would have dog bed as an exact match, and then you could use dog bed as a broad match and a phrase match, which is going to cover it all. It's the same keywords, they're just in a different order. So you definitely wouldn't put both combinations in. There's no need to. And that's where people run into trouble, and then they're spending money left, right, and center on the same keywords. So if you do that list, you take out your conjunctions, do plurals, all of that sort of thing, and then focus on those campaign types, you're going to save a lot of money and target the right keywords.
Yeah. So if you target dog bed, if someone types in dog bed, that's an exact match. If they type in dog's bed, still an exact match because Amazon doesn't care about the plural. If they type in dog beds, still exact match. It doesn't matter. If someone types in bed for dogs, well, that is a broad match, and that is still going to work. So you don't have to put in bed for dogs if you've put in dog bed.
Yeah.
So I hope that helped clear that up a little bit too. So I was just talking about how your ACOS goal is really going to be dependent on your profit margin. So I've got an example here. When you set your goals, and you need to set goals. If you don't set goals, then you don't know how to measure the success of your campaign. So you want to set revenue goals and you want to set ACOS goals. So how much revenue do you want to generate? How much can you afford to spend on your ACOS? And then you want to organize your PPC budget based on that. And at launch, if you're breaking even with ACOS, that is a huge win. That is huge. So if you're doing that at launch, that's great. And then you can eventually optimize it to where you're actually making profit and not just breaking even.
Yeah, for sure. We've just been asked, do we need to run keywords on fire every week to update the bidding? Definitely not. So you would need to, especially in the beginning, as we said, every week be monitoring the results of your PPC campaigns. And Amazon will tell you in there what their suggested bid price is. So if you're in a category that's seen a lot of movement, so say you were selling Christmas decorations, you'd be noticing that every week you're probably having to increase your bid price to match. They will guide you through there. And that's something to check in. Or maybe you'll find that it's dropping. Obviously, you want to lower your bids then as well, so you're not overpaying for anything.
Yeah, and like I have a product that I launched around this time last year, my hero product, and I sold out in March, and I've just recently been able to get back in stock. And I have decided to, it's been, almost a year. I should maybe check and see if there's any new keywords that are floating around out there with my competitors. And there's some new competitors out there. So I've run another keywords on fire session for a couple of my main keywords to see if there's anything new. So the keywords on you'll monitor your ad spend and the bid costs within Seller Central, and on those search term reports, which you can, just a little hot tip, you can set up for the search term reports to be created automatically and be emailed to you.
Yeah.
So that kind of just it'll automatically come, and then it'll hit your inbox. You go, oh, time to take a look at this.
Yeah, definitely. And it's fun to look at too. I always like seeing what people are into, how they're finding me. Renzo, just to clarify, ACOS is advertising costs of sales, and it's the metric of your ad spend, how much you're spending on advertising, divided by the number of sales you're made through advertising.
Yeah. So if you think if your goal is to sell 20 units a day, and you would be able to come up with a number of sales goals based on looking at what the competitors are doing on page one, and the in keywords on fire, the ZG launch, that tells you how many units you need to be selling a day to be keeping up with page one sales. So, you could have a product where, the competitors are selling, 40 a day. Well, that's a pretty competitive and high volume market, and it may be really difficult to be able to afford to stay in there and meet that same sales velocity. But yeah, so when you figured out how many sales you want to have per day, and your product is $20, so if I'm selling 20 units at $20, that's $400 in revenue. If I want my ACOS to be 30%, because that's my gross profit margin, then I can spend $120 a day in advertising and break even. So I would divide that up in between my campaigns. So if I've got 4 campaigns, that would be $30 a day for each campaign. Does that make sense? I hope.
No, it does. It's great. And yeah, I just wanted to stress that's on launch. So that's your launch strategy, not your ongoing strategy. Obviously, as your product matures, you really want to be carving out much higher margins.
Yes. Now, this is, again, launch, your initial campaign. You're going to have, when you initially launch your PPC, you're going to start with a manual campaign or manual campaigns. And again, they're going to have 6 to 8 keywords in each campaign. Divide that ad budget between your campaigns. And I would never, if you end up having a huge number of divisions and campaigns, I would maybe think about just starting with the top ones, because you don't, depending on your ad budget. So like if you have $120 you can spend per day and you have 10 campaigns, well, that's going to be $12 a day for each campaign. That's not a whole lot of ad spend, depending on the bid prices. So if your bids are around $1, well, you're only going to get 10 clicks, and then you're out. So if you're restricted with that, I tend to aim for at least $20 per campaign per day. 10 would be the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Absolute bare minimum. But I think 20 to 30 is usually a pretty good ad spend, depending on the bid cost.
Yeah, absolutely. Depends on the product, the selling category, but I definitely wouldn't recommend going under 10 for the US. I've never seen it. It doesn't work. Yeah.
The algorithm just will look at it and go, why am I going to bother? So you've divided your ad budget between your campaigns, and then I have done this, and it has worked really well. And I go with a fixed bid strategy for the first 2 weeks. So last week we went through the different types of bids. So you can say it's a fixed bid. So whatever I bid is what I'm going to pay. So if I bid $1, if Amazon, someone clicks on that ad, they're going to charge $1. Now that's really competitive, because it can get you displayed, because Amazon likes that. It's like, okay, we're going to get $1 if someone clicks on this. The way the bidding works, we'll just kind of quickly review from last week. You've got fixed bid, you've got dynamic up and down, and you've got dynamic down only. I never use dynamic up and down because
No,
that
it
gives
scares me.
Amazon, yeah, it gives Amazon permission to raise your bid 100%. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want Amazon to have that kind of control. So after my first 2 weeks, I'll switch it to dynamic down only. And what that means is, say I've bid $1 and the next, and I'm going to win the bid. The next highest bid price by a competitor for that keyword is 70 cents. Well, then Amazon's only going to charge me 71 cents, even though I've bid $1. So you can see why that when you're first starting out, that fixed bid strategy, Amazon likes that because it knows if someone clicks, you're going to get, that full amount. And then when I launch, I also will start out with about 150% of the suggested bid. So if the suggested bid is $1, I'm going to bid $1.50. And this is just for the first 2 weeks to really be that aggressive, to give Amazon, the algorithm, time to display my ads, learn my product, and understand what keywords are associated with my product properly.
Get some conversions so that the algorithm kicks in and goes, hey, this is a product for that particular keyword. We've been asked how long a launch strategy goes for, and there's no, I guess, textbook answer to that. My response would be when you start to rank at your goal, if it's page 1 and you get there, then you've launched. If you find after 2 months or that first production run that you haven't got there, your launch period is essentially over, and then you need to look at other strategies. But you should start to see traction within that first 2-month period, I'd say.
Yeah.
Even 3.
There's a lot, and there's no one knows for sure. I've heard people say, there's the honeymoon period when you launch, where Amazon gives you a lot of leeway and really tries to help you, which is another reason why you want to do a PPC campaign, so you can teach Amazon how you want them to help you.
Yeah, definitely.
And people notice, say it ranges from two weeks to a month, just depending. No one knows for sure.
Definitely I always think it's around that 2-week mark. You'll notice your sales when you first launch, everyone remembers that first sale they get on that board. You'll find that you're more likely to show in search result pages. As Kimberly mentioned, Amazon wants to help you. They want you to get that first foothold, get on the board. And then you'll notice they kind of step away a bit. And if you don't have your PPC campaigns in place by that time, you're really left to your own devices and you'll just fade off into the distance. You need PPC to help you really grab hold of that foothold and continue to climb the rankings. So it's
and I set my PPC up at the latest when the product's on the water. I want it ready to go. I'll create my listing, and then I will go to Inventory Manager and I will tick the little box, and there's a little drop down up above, and I will click Close Listing, and it closes it and it freezes it. And actually, when I ran out of stock, because I knew I was going to be out of stock for more than a few weeks, I closed my listing again. And that actually did preserve a lot for my product when I got back in stock. Because I've actually been selling decently, not huge, but decently, with no PPC campaign on that product now, once it's gotten back in stock. So so closing, I'm a huge advocate. If you're going to be out of stock for a while or you're not in stock yet, close your listing. You can still work on it in the background, and it won't hurt you with that honeymoon period. So after you've got your manual campaign set up, if it's within your advertising and marketing budget, this is also the time to drive external traffic. Amazon loves it when someone comes from somewhere else and lands on Amazon and buys a product. Now, there has been a change in some of Amazon's code of conduct lately. There used to be people who would go on who would create these particular types of URLs that would help rank. those are now against code of conduct. So you really need to only be using direct links to your listing or your storefront if you have a storefront and your brand registered, or using that Amazon affiliate link to drive people to your products. So you definitely need to follow that code of conduct and not be using these special URLs, which is great because now it makes everyone, it's a level playing field.
Yeah,
everyone
absolutely.
has to do it the same way. So if you can do this, driving traffic from Facebook or Instagram or wherever your customers are. I mean, depending on your product, my product, I think I have a pretty good audience on Facebook. I don't think a lot of my customers are necessarily looking at Instagram so much. So, it just depends on your niche, and where your ideal customer tends to hang out on social media. And then there's also Google ads as well. So any external traffic, if you can afford it and it works in your budget, I highly recommend it. And then you just need to monitor your campaign, monitor it and optimize it. And that's what we're going to get into next. So we've talked about the search term report. I know you're a big fan of the search term report.
I am.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. It has
I'm a
a lot of
spreadsheet
really,
person. Yeah.
I am too, but I still hate it. I think
Yeah.
I hate it because when I was using it at the beginning, I didn't have as much of an in-depth understanding of PPC. So it can be scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, just work with it. The more you work with it, the better you understand it. But you can also look at your advertising dashboard, and Amazon has added some great new columns to the advertising dashboard lately.
They really have. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
We've just been asked if we can put the social media links on product inserts, even though the social media advertisers to buy on Amazon. Yeah. So I think what you're touching on there is Amazon's quite sensitive to leading buyers off their platform. So you have obviously on your listing page and things like that, you can't say, hey, go check out my Facebook page. That's a huge no. But, brands do have a presence, whether it be on Facebook or Instagram, and having that written on your packaging or an insert, that's okay. You're going to, I find on all my products, I'll have my little Instagram, find us at this handle, tag us in a picture with your product, whatever it might be, that is fine. You just can't lead shoppers off the Amazon website to purchase your product.
Yeah, and it's important too that when you're sending your customer service emails, that you don't put any links. Amazon will not send your email if you have links in it, and you want to be careful if you're having an attachment to your product to your email that you don't have any links in that either.
Yeah, they get quite sensitive.
Yes, and they will find it. They will figure it out.
Without a doubt. Yeah, it's not worth risking. It's definitely not.
We're going to look at our search term report or our advertising dashboard weekly for the first 3 to 4 months. And like I said, you can set up that search term report to be emailed to you automatically. So that just makes it happen, and you can review it each week. You want to focus on where the money is being spent. So you could see, some really low, figures on your search term report, but you have to look at it. Is it costing you a significant amount of money? And that's what you want to look at. What's costing you money? Is it getting you sales? Now, for me, I don't typically make a judgment call on a keyword unless I've got over 1,000 impressions.
An
impression,
go ahead. Just to clarify, it's the number of times your ad is being displayed. So it's a numbers game. You want to make sure that enough people have seen your ad.
Yeah, and here's the thing too about impressions. You could get credit for an impression, but that doesn't mean anybody saw it. Because if your ad displayed towards the bottom of the search result page and they stopped scrolling midway through, it was displayed, but doesn't necessarily mean someone saw it.
Yeah.
So that's why you want to have over 1,000. Now, click-through, CTR is your click-through ratio. And so that's the number of times someone has clicked on your ad divided by the number of impressions.
Yeah.
And greater than 0, and I know this looks like a really tiny number. That is not a typo.
It is
Greater.
small. I remember when I first started checking, I was like, oh, I'm doing terrible. I'm not even hitting like 10%. This is terrible. And then I obviously did the research and went, okay, this is where it should be. Okay.
Yeah. So
we're good.
Greater than 0.3, that's good. I've actually got a couple of my best keywords on my advertising for my other product that is like 1 or 2%, and I'm just like,
Woohoo.
wow,
Yeah,
that's huge.
it is huge.
So,
You don't often hear those kind of numbers. So yeah,
no.
good to know.
And then the other metric that you want to look at, along with your ACOS and your tacos or ACOTS, is ROAS. So that is your return on ad spend. So if it's greater than 1, that means for every dollar you've spent, you've gotten a dollar back. So that's a break even. So if you want it definitely higher, but if you're at 1, especially at the beginning,
it's a good start.
That's a good start. Yeah. All right. So areas of concern that you might run into. So if you've got a lot of clicks and no sales, what's wrong?
Yeah.
So if people are clicking on your ad, but they're not buying it, that would typically make me think, okay, are you advertising for something that's not relevant? Are you that bamboo product and you're using a wood in your keyword, and that's not relevant? So they've clicked on it and gone, oh, that's really not what I was looking for.
Yeah.
It could also be that maybe your listing, I start looking at the listing. If the keyword is relevant, then I look, is the listing good? How does it compare to other people? How are my photos? Do I have good infographics? Have I gotten a good description of my product's benefits in the bullet points? So that's what I typically look at first when I'm getting high clicks and no sales. Now, if you've got high impressions and a low click-through ratio, so you're getting shown a whole lot and nobody's clicking on it, well, then the first thing I look at is the hero image, or the price.
Yeah, I was going to say price comes to my mind when I hear that.
Yeah. So look at, does your hero image jump out on the page? Or have you visually differentiated your product? Are you ridiculously more expensive than everybody else? I started seeing a lot of impressions and a drop in my click-through ratio for my third product. And it was because I hadn't been paying attention to the marketplace, and the cost for the product across the board started dropping. So I needed to make those changes to my price. And then if you're getting low impressions, well, if you're getting low impressions, I would say that you've either got a budget problem with your campaign, and there's just not enough budget left over for this keyword compared to the others, or the bid price itself for that particular keyword is not competitive.
Yeah.
And that's keeping you from getting the impressions at all.
Yeah, so have a look to make sure that the search volume's right for the keywords in each campaign group. Maybe you've got some really big keywords in there that are taking away from the smaller ones. What are you bidding? Is it within Amazon's suggested range, or are you just going way under? Definitely.
Yeah, and that's why we recommend dividing up your keywords with just a few keywords in each campaign, so they all get a chance to get those impressions.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so now I know this was a whole lot, and we're still going. So you've launched, you've started, you're getting sales, fantastic. Day 5 to day 7, you start looking at that first, that first bit of data, and you might decide to turn off some really poor performing targets or keywords. You may, turn them off for a while, and then once you get some reviews, maybe give them another chance to perform and see. So what are what do we mean when we say not performing? So I know you're really good at explaining this, Kimberly. So what would you say is not performing?
I just want to preface it by saying it's going to be different for every product, every selling category, and every market. For my product, I'm pretty brutal. So I'll look at the number of clicks I've had. If I've had more than 20 clicks on a keyword but zero sales, I will switch it off in that first instance. But as you pointed out, having more reviews on the board can make the world a difference. Again, it depends on your product. So if
Hmm.
social proof plays a big element here, I will switch it back on once that new product has a few more ratings behind it. But we're all going to have different metrics there, but that's generally what I look for initially.
Yeah. And for me, I'll look at it, and if I've got a lot of clicks and no sales, but maybe my bid price is really low and the suggested bid is low, and so it's not like costing me a lot of money. If it's cost me like $1 or $2 over a week or 2 weeks, I may give it a little bit more time because
Yeah,
it's not draining my budget.
yeah,
So
especially in the beginning when it's still learning. It's trying to work out where to place you, what's relevant, what's not. That's a really good point.
yeah, so that's why it's really important. Like that's why I stressed before, you want to look at where the money's going.
Mm,
What's really costing you money?
yeah. And I'll
Um,
often, when I'm reviewing in the advertising dashboard, is I'll order that column. So I'll order it by the spend. So I can
yep,
see, okay, this one here is taking up all the money. Let's see how it's performing.
yep,
Um, so that you can
absolutely.
order your results and make some pretty smart decisions.
Now, at the beginning, I typically, for the first week, I'm pretty much only going to have exact match. Well, nah, depending on the product, and depending on my budget, and I may put some broader phrase up there, but I definitely won't do an auto campaign at the beginning. So
Yeah.
I will wait until I've got at least a review on the board before I start that auto campaign, and often the phrase and broad at the same time. So I will just focus on that exact match at the beginning, the first week. So Amazon really learns exactly what I am, and I
Mm,
don't let it get confusing with, especially with broad
yeah.
um, keywords.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Another thing to point out too, the relevant keywords that aren't performing in the exact campaign, you might just lower the bid and put them in a phrase and broad campaign and just see what happens. And
Mm,
it just give it a shot. It may not cost you any money.
yeah. Yeah, it's just that constant little tweaks, not dramatic changes, but little movements. Assessing, is it in the right direction? Great, let's continue. You're like little science experiments every week. Okay, let's try what happens if we increase this bid cost and move this keyword out, or just little things at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, once you make those changes, then you want to kind of let it sit.
Mm,
Let it have a chance to have an impact. You don't want to be tinkering with it every single day.
no,
That was one of the problems that my friend who didn't have the best PPC campaign set up for her. She was constantly making changes, and you have to give it time to absorb the change
yeah,
and impact and let the change have an impact before
yeah,
you decide if it's working or not. That's why we say about every week you want to take a
yeah.
look at everything.
Anything more than that, I think, is overkill, and you'll actually do more damage.
Yes. So once you've started your auto phrase and broad campaigns, now this is a really key point. So negative exact match the keywords that you have in your manual campaign. So you can take all of the keywords that are in your manual campaign, you start your auto campaign, there's a place at the bottom once you've set up your campaign, and you just put in a list that you want to negative exact match. And the reason for that is you don't want to be bidding on them twice. So if you've got dog bed in your manual campaign, well, you don't want the auto campaign to be displaying ads for dog bed, not from the auto campaign.
No,
You're
yeah,
you're bidding on
you
it twice.
you're competing against yourself.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, absolutely. And you also don't want dog bed exact to end up showing in your phrase and broad. You would want it to be bed for dog. That's good, because that's different. That's
Yeah.
not going to work. And so you basically don't want, it's just keeping you from competing against yourself
Yeah.
by doing that.
And this is another thing I often see people completely overlook. They feel like the more that's out there, the more chances I've got of making a sale. But if you're strategic about it, you're going to appear at the right times for the right cost, rather than having, 3 or 4 campaigns all fighting over the one keyword within your own ad set. It just doesn't make sense. So
No, and it will dilute the efficacy of your keywords, and it will impact your organic rank. It will snowball the wrong way.
yeah.
Then you want to start harvesting the performing keywords from these auto, phrase, and broad. Like we said, when you look at that search term report, someone may have, you may have had 4 or 5 sales off of a keyword, fluffy beds for dogs, and that wasn't anywhere in there. So I was like, okay, well, that keyword has been entered a few times and it's gotten me a few sales. I'm going to take that out. I'm going to put it in a manual campaign, and I'm going to give that some spend and see how that goes. And I actually start a new campaign, and I call it a harvest campaign. And that's where I add these new keywords. I don't go and add it to my other existing campaigns. And then when you take it out, then you want to negative match it in that campaign you pulled it out from, so it doesn't continue to, you're not competing against yourself again.
Absolutely. And that's a good point, where once a campaign's set up, you can continue to add keywords or remove keyword. You can switch them off. So it's not set in stone once it's created in terms of what keyword. So
I tend to just like to have those new ones in their own little campaign, because I don't want to take, especially the really good ones. But yeah, you can add them if you choose to. It's your preference. This is just how I do it. And like I said, there's so many different PPC strategies out there. This is just one example. But it's come from it's similar to what I've seen from a lot of different people who are very successful in the space.
Yeah. No, I like that idea.
All right. So again, just to revisit, your PPC strategy through all of this, you've done your effective keyword research, you've optimized your product listing and your offer, and you've given your campaigns 2 to 3 weeks, and then you're monitoring them, and letting them really develop, and then you just continue to optimize your campaigns for profitability. And that's where you're going through and taking out those poor performing keywords, and and that will see your ACoS go down, your ACoTs go down, and your profits go up. Okay.
Wow, that was a big one.
We made it.
You did amazing. So I just wanted to say thank you for everybody. I've been looking at the numbers, and it was a very heavy training, but you've all stuck in there. So
yeah,
well
thank you
done.
guys.
Yeah, really, really grateful. At the end, we usually open this up to Q&As, and it doesn't need to be about the topic we've discussed today. It can be about anything that you're wanting to, brainstorm, troubleshoot with Amazon. We'll help where we can, and I know that we've got some pretty clever people in the room as well who might be able to help out. So if you do have a question, now's the time to drop it into the chat.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do see Renzo has asked, when do you implement the auto, phrase, and broad? So I tend to do that after I've gotten a review on the board, around the 5 to 7 day mark. If I don't have a review on the board yet, I'll wait a little while until I do it.
It's amazing what social proof can do for a listing. So if anybody is going to launch, or you've launched a product, make sure you switch Review Automator on. It makes a big difference. So Review Automator is one of the ZonGuru tools that will automatically send review requests to all your buyers, but it's clever. It won't send it to anybody who has a pending order or a refunded order. So you're more likely to get those 5-star reviews on your listing, and it's set and forget. You just switch it on and it gets to work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That is probably one of the best tools on the planet. I mean, I say that about so many of them. I just keep saying, oh, that's my favorite. Oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah. That
it just makes such a difference.
It does. That one's just peace of mind for me. It's like, that's on, it's fine. I don't need to worry about that. And
100%.
then, it just kind of rolls in, which is really nice.
Yes, yes,
Um,
it does.
it could be that we don't have any questions today.
No, I think we've everyone's been really good asking questions as we go, which probably
Yeah.
is a little bit more effective for the topic. But um, okay, so Renzo, so the rule for implementing the auto phrase in broad campaigns is after you've got a review on the board between the 5 to 7 day mark. And if you don't have a review yet, then I tend to wait.
Yeah. And again, it's going to be different per marketplace. I notice in Australia, people aren't as quick to leave reviews, whereas in America, they're very onto it. So it's all relative to where you're selling. And I know I sound like a broken record, but if you try and apply what works in the US to India, Australia, there's a mismatch there. You need to be aware of your market.
Yeah, absolutely. And it, you learn these things as you go. I said we're still learning. I've been doing this,
Absolutely.
for over a year, and I'm still, mind blown.
Yeah.
Don't put in conjunctions. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to drop if I can find where to enter I can't
Oh,
find where to go.
you don't actually need to do that anymore because,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So the platform we used to host these webinars has just gone through a big facelift, and some of the functionality we used to have to do manually, we don't have to do anymore, which is very cool for us. But seeing as we don't have any questions, I might let you go because you've been an amazing audience and stuck in this long. It's incredible. So much content there. The replay will be going out in a few hours, and it will have that PDF attachment there where you can get everything that was discussed. And of course, we hope to see you on next week's training.